Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Welcome to First Coast Connect. I'm Ann Schindler. Today, we're talking about village people in a changing landscape. After losing its marquee tenants and increasingly hemmed in by superstore traffic, the promise of World Golf Village has fallen short of its early promises. We talked to a local reporter covering the story. Later in the program, a dramatic video shows a local police officer talking a suicidal man off the edge of the Dames Point Bridge. We talked to the cop behind the viral intervention. But first, in the beginning, World Golf Village promised a community as prescripted and manicured as a putting green. But the loss of defining amenities and the arrival of numerous big box stores as neighbors has led to subpar experiences for some residents. Here to talk about how we got here and to give me grief about puns is Noah Hertz. He is the St. Johns County beat reporter for Jacksonville today. Noah, thanks for being here.
Good morning, Ann. Yeah, it was the puns and it was in the beginning, there was golf.
Yeah, there was, and the glory of golf.
Exactly.
Fully.
Exactly.
This was going to be the celebration of it. I want to get to it, but before we start, I do want to say this started as a question from a reader of Jacksonville Today. It's part of a regular feature that Jacksonville Today does called Ask Jax Today. How do people submit questions if they want to get something answered?
They can send those either on our website. I believe there's a form they can fill out, or they can send them to news@jaxtoday.org. Or if it's St. John's related, you can send it directly to me, noah@jaxtoday.org. But yeah, this was a question that came directly from a reader, somebody who lives nearby to World Golf Village, kind of within the bounds of what people would colloquially refer to as World Golf Village in the area. And basically said, what's happening in this area? What's going on with this community that I live in? You know, what are the plans for it? It had been something like 6-8 months since there had been any public conversation about it among county leaders. And so it was a fun opportunity to kind of dig back in, grab some people and say, okay, it's been 6-8 months. What's going on with this? Because residents want to know. They want to know what's going on in their community.
Yeah. And I mean, there are big questions looming because, as we said, there was a lot of promise to this community, a lot of promises made, at least a vision that is no longer in place. So let's talk a little bit about, remind us what this development originated as, when it started, and sort of what the elements were.
Yeah, so back in the 1990s, in 1996, there was an agreement brokered between a couple of different entities, notably the World Golf Foundation, a nonprofit organization that is very closely aligned with the PGA Tour, and another landowner/developer. These days they are known as IT Land Developments LLC, something like that. IT Land is just what I've been referring to them as. They kind of all agreed that they wanted to create this gigantic planned community, something to the tune of like 40 plus acres, that had a very specific focus on golf. Like you said, we're talking golf courses, PGA Tour offices, the World Golf Hall of Fame, all of these neat things, along with an IMAX theater, a hotel, convention center space, all kinds of stuff like that. So that deal was brokered in 1996. The landowner, IT Land, gave something, like I said, like 37, I believe, acres to the World Golf Foundation for basically nothing, and told them to develop it, to find stakeholders. For years, anybody who has driven up and down this portion of 95 will know that there is the big World Golf Hall of Fame and Caddyshack signs that you get off, and you can go check things out. But as of 2023, I believe it was, the World Golf Hall of Fame shut down and moved their operation up to Pinehurst in North Carolina. The IMAX theater closed a year or two ago. The PGA Tour moved their offices out of World Golf Village and into Ponte Vedra, where the PGA Tour is kind of more based now. And so, other than the golf courses and I guess you could argue the Caddyshack restaurant, this kind of golf usage in this area is minimized at this point. It is not what it used to be.
Yeah, it was also home to this largest golf store in the state of Florida, which is also closed down. It's hard to remember, and certainly there were thousands of people in this area that didn't live here at the time, but there wasn't even a highway interchange at World Golf Village. It was was it 9 Mile Swamp Road? 9 Mile Road?
9 Mile Road, I
9 Mile
believe,
Road,
yeah.
which it had been called that for hundreds of years, renamed World Golf Village Parkway. But the developer, so interested in developing this northwest area of St. Johns County, actually subsidized
Mhm.
the cost of building a highway interchange.
Yeah, and it's funny to think that now that I would wager that the bulk of people, at least who aren't in this area, and a majority of people who are in this area probably would know it as the Buc-ee's exit now.
Uh,
It's the exit with the Buc-ee's. It's the one that you see the signs for Buc-ee's 30, 50 miles in advance, and then it's the one where traffic clogs up when you get off there because, there's the Buc-ee's and the Costco and the Bass Pro Shops and all of these, like you said, enormous shopping plazas that are kind of clogging traffic up around there.
yeah, and this has also paved the way for other developments in the area.
Mhm.
I mean, this interchange and this development really predated all of the development in the next exit north, that
Yeah.
210 interchange, which is, Cimarron and all of these other massive developments, Beachside. It predates Nocatee.
Yeah.
So this was the first development of regional impact really for that area
Mhm.
and changed the fortunes of that area.
Yeah.
What do you think that the the residents of that area now are experiencing as these marquee tenants have started to disappear?
I think a big element that I have heard from residents in the area, and I can say it certainly seems like the county has too, is maybe a frustration is too strong, but a confusion as to why some of these tenants' spaces have not filled back up. I mean, listeners might recall too, that when the World Golf Hall of Fame vacated and when the rumblings first started that the IMAX theater might close, St. Johns County launched all of these listening sessions and these surveys to kind of get a feel from residents in the area and outside the area who come there a lot about what they want to see. And, some things stuck out, specifically like people wanted to see the IMAX theater maintained in some capacity because it's a fun place to take your kids. It's a fun family thing to go see a movie at the IMAX. They wanted to see other activities in the area. I know one popular thing is people said, why not put a public library somewhere in there, because the nearest public library to people who live in the World Golf Village area is a good ways away. And so that kind of prompted the county to begin looking at purchasing some of or all of the property that the World Golf Foundation owns to kind of maybe undergo a public-private partnership to do something with it, maybe just find a tenant of their own to do something with it. But that's kind of where things get into the next element of this here, which is this deed restriction that was placed on the development that basically says for 50 years after we inked this deal in 1996, everything has to be golf related. Everything has to be golf or sports related in here, which has kind of thrown a wrench into some of the business dealings.
Yeah, and so we should make clear there's the developer of the property, this IT company, and then there is the World Golf Foundation, which is the entity that bought land from the developer to use for these purposes, the Golf Hall of Fame, the IMAX. And so this is a chunk of the property that is in question. The foundation bought it, you said, for almost nothing, about
Just about,
$100?
yeah.
Yeah.
And now what the foundation is trying to do, St. Johns County came very close to purchasing the land that the World Golf Foundation owns. Like I said, that like 37, 39 acres, somewhere in there. And it wasn't until they reached the due diligence period before the purchase that they determined that there was this deed restriction on there. And that really gave the county cold feet, because now, if they're trying to do something, some kind of event hub or public community space or public-private partnership that local residents had kind of signaled was what they wanted, it gave the county pause. And so they backed off of it. And so that leads to this court action that is in the process right now, where the World Golf Foundation has asked for a judge to judge whether this deal that was inked in 1996 that says everything has to be golf or sports related for 50 years, which would be 20 more years from now, so not until 2046 would they be able to do other things, whether that holds water, given that the World Golf Foundation argues, much like you said at the beginning, that this initial vision has failed, that it is not sustainable, that the market has bared out, that it is not going to work as just a golf and sports related development. And so they want to be able to do other things with it.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we are talking to reporter Noah Hertz about the future of World Golf Village. If you have questions or comments, you can join our conversation on air live at 904-549-2937, or you can go to firstcoastconnect.org. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. So the involvement of the courts has arrived because there have been failed negotiations.
Hmm.
It does seem interesting that St. Johns County had gotten as far as it did down the path towards maybe let's buy this. I think the
Hmm.
Board of County Commissioners had already approved
Yeah.
the more than $5 million purchase of this IMAX portion of the
Hmm.
property.
Yeah, well, the surrounding portion, yeah,
Okay.
the rest of it, that like the Hall of Fame building and some of these other chunks and that kind of thing. Yeah,
Okay. And that was because after the closure of these properties, they heard from residents who said, we don't want this just to
yeah,
either lay fallow or be snapped up for some other purpose. We
exactly.
want it to remain a community asset and a part of the county where there aren't a ton of things for families to do
Yeah.
recreationally. And so the IMAX, that whole location as a draw has been pretty significant in their minds. Do we know, though, I mean, kind of what the foundation was trying to negotiate before this landed in the courts?
The foundation was basically still at the stage of trying to argue that this deal or this original deed restriction didn't hold any water because based on the court documents I've read and the things that I've heard from the county commissioners discussing it, it very much seems like that deed restriction makes the entire thing a non-starter because no one wants to develop or purchase or do something with this land and then realize that they ran afoul of a deed restriction that was penned 30 years ago. So that is why, or at least that certainly seems why they went to the courts after trying to negotiate with the original developer to get this deed restriction lifted. But like I said, that has kind of just put a pause on everything. I mean, the last time the county commission discussed it, I think it was back in October or November last year, they had reached a stage of basically kind of shrugging and saying, we're going to stop asking for public-private partnership submissions. And at this point, they kind of just want to sell the land that they own out there and just wash their hands of the entire thing. Now, that might be different
Now,
once
what is the
this.
land that the county owns? I'm sorry, out there versus
Mhm.
the land that the foundation owns?
The county owns a handful of parcels that they lease out to
Is that like the
other
convention center?
like the convention center. Yes, exactly. And that was part of the original deal in 1996 when they figured this out. It was kind of the county has this little chunk, the World Golf Foundation has the overwhelming majority of it, and then IT Land still owns a handful of other little parcels in there too. And so the goal of the county when they were talking about purchasing this was kind of completing the pie and purchasing everything that they don't already have. Now that those deed restrictions have revealed themselves and everything has kind of become a little trickier there, that's when they started saying, maybe we just sell the portions that we own and call it a
Get
day.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is now obviously very valuable property.
Oh,
The
yeah.
idea
Oh,
that the
yeah.
foundation purchased this property for $100,
Yeah, exactly.
I could see why perhaps the original developer would say, hey, I mean, that was a deal that we offered because at the time, this was the arrangement. You were going to provide these specific functions.
Yeah, that was.
But now,
Mm.
with all the development in the area and certainly the mega stores, you can imagine why the developer would say, we gave it to you for $100. It's worth far more than that today if you were to sell it. And if we lift these restrictions, you'd be the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, last I checked, the property appraiser with the county values the land at something like $5 million because, like you said, it's in an extremely hot part of the county. And to your point, that is kind of the argument that IT Land has made in their court filings. I know this might be radio poison, but I want to read a little snippet from
No,
this
go for
legal
it.
filing because it's really interesting. In their response to the World Golf Foundation asking for a judge to rule on this, one of the lines in here,
This is the developer.
this is the developer. They said the foundation may not make a promise, accept the grant of the land and monetary and contractual benefits over 30 years on the basis, in part, of that promise, and then undo that promise after it decides the promise no longer serves its financial interests. So like I said, their argument is basically, I know you're saying that the World Golf Hall of Fame closed, that the PGA Tour left and all of this, but arguing that it is no longer a financially viable business model of this golf and sports specific development is really just because you want to get out of this deal. And that's what their argument is that, you've accepted these incentives, you've accepted money and this land on the agreement that for 50 years, that's how it would be used. Now you're a little over halfway into it and you're trying to get out of the deal. What does that mean?
Yeah. So. We've got a call from Daryl in St. Augustine. Good morning, Daryl. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Ann. A little bit of history back there. Back in the day when they were going to build the World Golf Hall of Fame and all of that up there, the financing was backstopped by the bed tax in St. Johns County. And they sold it to the county commissioners and to the people, saying that 1 million visitors would visit St. Johns County and come to the World Golf Village, and then they would go to the attractions and so forth. And everybody in the tourism industry knew that was, no, that's not really going to happen. But politically, they got it through and did it. The tourism industry was pretty furious that basically the bed tax dollars that they raised were used to finance competition outside of the town. Mm-hmm. And of course, a few years later, there were not 1 million new visitors coming to St. Johns County, and St. Johns County bed tax did have to pay, I'm pretty certain, a couple of $100,000 a year towards the debt of the resort, the hotel, and the whole facility up there.
Yeah, Daryl.
So,
go ahead. I think we're having a little trouble with your connection, Daryl, so I'm just going to push it over to Noah. Mm-hmm. Certainly St. Johns County, I think downtown St. Augustine, whatever issues they had at the time, they certainly are not hurting for tourists at this point. And in fact, that has been an issue for people living there in terms of the quality of life, because in large part, those tourist development dollars have been used to advertise the city so successfully that it's sort of overwhelmed life there, daily life. But to Daryl's point, this was enormously controversial back in the day when, essentially bed tax dollars that are paid by heads in beds and are used to promote tourism and draw people to the area were being used instead to finance developments on the far, far fringes of St. Augustine. And
it's interesting because I hear the argument that bringing people to the far, far fringes of St. Augustine to stay in this area would potentially have them going, what can I do that is not here on the fringes? How can I get further in? But that also speaks to just how radically the landscape of St. Johns County has changed over the last 30 years. Even if you talk about, like you mentioned, the tourism, just the density of people coming to St. Augustine now compared to how many people were coming to St. Augustine 30 years ago it's monumentally different. And
it's a completely different place.
And that's something that, is a constant battle, push and pull for the city of trying to figure out what to do with all these people who want to come here, not to mention just the explosion of residential development too. So whereas this corridor of St. John's might have originally been conceived by this developer as chiefly a place for tourism and visitors, there's tens of thousands of people who live in this area now. There's schools out there. There's all of these things that are primarily residential now too, that have kind of tessellated around World Golf Village and around the big corridor with all of the big shopping and all of these things. So you have people kind of, just going about their life, taking their kids to Tucoy Creek, the school right there, and having to navigate travelers and people who are jumping off the interstate to gas up. Like it truly is a different place than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, just to put some figures to that, because it's mind-boggling. At the time that this development was envisioned and these promises made, the population of St. Johns County was 84,000. Today it's 340,000, which is a 300% increase in the population.
And if you ask the folks in the local government, they would tell you that that's probably an underestimate too.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't by any account for the number of homes that have been improved and are in the pipeline that are part of these massive developments of regional impact, as they used to be called, including Silverleaf, which, the infrastructure for World Golf Village essentially lay the groundwork for that Hudson Community Development.
Yeah, an absolutely enormous development out there too.
Another about the size of Nocatee. And so for people who are living in World Golf Village, there was a lot of blowback when that Buc-ee's first opened because the entrance to that, I don't know how many rows of gas tanks there are.
It's like 150 or 100 or something like that. Yeah, something crazy.
Almost directly across from the entrance to the World Golf Village development itself. Since that time, there's been a Bass Pro Shop added to that Buc-ee's, interchange or exit. I guess not the exit, but the entrance to Buc-ee's, that area. And so it's become enormously congested for people. Yeah,
and there's more stuff going in too. There's going to be a Walmart down that way. I mean, there's the Costco that's right there too. That's a really big draw for people in the area. So you've got the mix of people in the area coming over here and people jumping off the interstate to go there too. And it's just a tidal wave of traffic right there. Like I said, mixed among people who are maybe just trying to get home from the grocery store or taking their kids to school.
Yeah, it's a development that is, as you said, the courts are looking at, and you had some interesting quotes in your piece, including the position of the developer that it's not the judge's job, essentially. It's not the court's job to make sure that the foundation is able to develop this land or that they're in any way reimbursed for, or that they make money in any respect. So tell us a little bit about kind of why that position it may or may not hold water. I mean, I'd be curious to know what the foundation's argument is that these deed restrictions should be abolished. I mean, they are a matter of this contract. And is there any precedent? Is there any belief that just because they say it's not feasible financially, that those rules should be abolished?
I mean, as far as arguments, it's a lot of what you and I have been talking about here now, about the fact that the population in the area has changed, that the landscape of tourism has changed, and the fact that, like I said, they're arguing if the business model was to bring the Hall of Fame and the PGA Tour and the IMAX and these things as the main draw, those things are closed. That indicates that it has failed.
It doesn't really necessarily make sense, though, that to argue, it seems like if anything, properties like that would be more viable. In a time when there's more residents, there's more demand, there's certainly more tourists coming to the area.
It's just a question of whether that viability lays in something that is related to golf or sports.
Right.
And I think that's where the key of the World Golf Foundation's argument lies, which is that, this land is valuable. It's in a really great spot, but is somebody going to want to come in and build, a golf museum because we have this enormous building that was a golf museum? Are they going to put something else in there? So as far as precedent, I'm not going to pretend to be a legal scholar, but I do know that I would not be surprised if things like this are happening across the state of Florida, given the population change and the change in industry and the shape of a community that we've seen and are seeing in St. Johns County is no doubt happening across the state as just the influx of people that the state has gotten just in the last decade alone. I mean, the face of Florida has changed a lot. And so I would not be surprised if there are communities or who knows what around the state that have experienced similar changes in terms of, what are we as a community? What is our identity? What is our means of making money? What is our means of selling ourselves? I mean, I was in Sarasota this past weekend, and I think anybody who grew up in Sarasota would be a little shocked to see how much it has been built up in the last couple of decades. But that's kind of what it is now. It's big hotels, and it's the mix of big hotels with the lovely beaches and that kind of thing. So I don't know what the future is for that part of St. Johns County, but I would not be surprised if we do see some development there in the next couple of, decades, because those are some big buildings, and they're big buildings in a really important spot. So we'll see.
Well, we're going to be following your reporting, and we should note, Noah Hertz is a dedicated beat reporter in St. Johns County. That's a place that a lot of people say, well, there's so much news. Where do we let people know when there's something happening or something that we want covered? So just again, if people are looking to send a story idea or a tip or a question, Noah, what's the best place for them to do that?
if they go onto the Jax Today website, you can click on our About Us section, and you can find my little face, and it has an email there, or any of my stories. There's a little picture of me at the bottom. You can click on with an email. But for quick response, it is Noah, Noah, at jaxtoday.org. And that's a pretty easy way to get a hold of me. So
Noah Hertz, thank you so much for your reporting. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ann.
All right. Up next, a Jacksonville sheriff's officer literally talks a man off the ledge. We meet the officer credited with the life-saving intervention. Welcome back. On April 12th, an officer who was initially directing traffic on the scene of an attempted suicide found himself deeply involved in its outcome. Here to tell us about his remarkable life-saving efforts is Jacksonville Sheriff's Officer Antonio Richardson. Officer Richardson, thanks so much for being here.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to say at the outset here, if you or someone you know is in crisis, you can call or text the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988. We are going to be talking about suicide in this segment. If you would, Officer Richardson, just remind us what happened that night, how you were called to the scene in the first place.
We received a call of a individual who was on the Dane Point Bridge who was threatening to jump. It was not in my subsector. It was in my district, but not in my subsectors. So normally I don't get that call in that area. But this particular day, we were short on officers. Officers had already been there a while. So when I got there, my job was simply, we always stop the traffic, both the north and the southbound direction. I was stopping the traffic in the southbound direction. And when I got out of the vehicle, one officer said, "Hey, we have a pastor here. You could talk with him." He was talking to the individual that was threatening to jump. "You could talk with the pastor." And they motioned for me to come up. And it kind of caught me off guard because I wasn't thinking that I was going to be thrust in that position, and I was. So I went up and I saw the young man on the ledge, and that's when the whole thing started.
Did you take a moment to collect yourself? Did you just kind of run up there? What were your thoughts as you were asked to step in that situation?
I didn't have time to do anything but just respond. And so I responded impromptu. And I just started talking with him, just naturally engaged him in a conversation. And I felt as though I was on the ledge with him. I could feel what he was feeling at that moment. I can't explain it, but I could feel what he was feeling at that moment. And we just connected. And all I knew, I did not want him to jump.
You've been a pastor for 3 decades or so?
Yes, 32 years.
Anything about that specifically prepare you for this kind of conversation?
Just faith and compassion, knowing that it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to be alone. And I knew that he had some struggles because he shared some things with me. And as a pastor, I'm often engaged in conversation with people who have issues and problems. And so I was immediately able to identify with what he was going through and have a conversation with him that caused us to become friends.
So there is a video that shows this interaction. It was a long interaction, but there's a portion of it that I'd like to show and just listen to for our listeners and our viewers. Let's just take a moment.
Whatever you're going through, man, you can get through it. No, listen, man, listen. You can get through this. Come on, let's talk about it for a minute. Can I at least have a prayer with you? You believe in prayer, I know that. Can I at least have a prayer with you? You mind if I just hold your hand and pray with you? Come on, man, touch my hand.
So that is a video that was released by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, we should say, but it has been circulated widely. What watching that, listening to it, what is it evoking you right now? What does it make you think of?
That day, how I felt, the emotions that was running through me. Even now, when I listen to it, I watch it, I tear up because two things I noticed that day. I saw one. I saw the power of God operating in an individual's life, a man that was on the brink of ending it all, on the ledge, and I could see him walking on the ledge. At one point, he even gave me everything out of his pocket and said, "That's it, I'm done." And the video, of course, it's edited and it don't show the entirety of the conversation that lasted over 40 minutes, but there were times where it really became tense, and so all I said to myself is, I don't want to see him jump. And it seemed like it was touch and go, and so you can see me pleading with him. And when I listen to it, the emotions, they swell up. I can actually see myself pleading with him not to jump. And so when I see that or hear that, it just brings me back to that moment, and it does something to me.
And when you say he offered his keys, his wallet, his possessions, there must have been some moments where you really felt that this conversation was not going to end well.
When I first went up as a pastor, I felt like, well, maybe I can say something. But then as I talked, and there was times where it seemed like I was making headway and it was going to be all right. And then when he took everything out of his pocket, that's when it got tense for me. And I was praying within myself, and I was saying, God, please don't let it end this way, because emotionally, it would have damaged me to watch somebody just jump when I could not say anything as a pastor to convince them not to jump. I think that would have done something to me spiritually.
I imagine it would have been devastating. I imagine it's done something to you anyway.
Yes, it has. It's impacted me in a tremendous way, a positive way, but it's impacted me tremendously. But my burden was not just getting him off the bridge. Sometimes people think that because he walked off the bridge, it's a heroic act you did. You should feel good, but that's not what made me feel good or what makes me feel good. My greatest concern in this whole situation was not just getting him not to jump that day, but to keep him from not wanting to jump again, ever. And so I made it my business the next few days to try to contact him, which I was able to contact him, found out what he needed, reached out to him, and we talk on a regular basis, and I let him know, hey, if you ever need me, let me know. He surprised me a few weeks ago. He came to my church with his family members. About 11 of them came, and they were very thankful, and the church was able to just love on him. And his thoughts was, I feel better because I didn't know that a community cared about me so much. And I thank everybody for the comments that they gave, because he read those comments and he felt like, I thought I was in a world by myself, but now I see that people genuinely care about me. We were able to get him counseling, and so he's in a much, much better place now.
I would imagine that his family expressed a lot of gratitude to you.
Oh, yes, they did.
What kind of comments did they share with you?
The biggest thing that they shared with me is, you saved, his brother, his sister, his mother was there. You saved the siblings said, you saved my brother's life, and the mother said, you saved my son's life. And it wasn't me. And sometimes people, they act as if I was the only one involved, and I wasn't. This was a team effort, a total team effort. When I got there, those officers had already been engaging him in conversation. They had already talked with him. And I tell people, I like to tell this story. It's like a football game. It's 3 seconds left in the game. The quarterback drops back, he throws a Hail Mary pass, the receiver catches it in the end zone, and he wins the game. Everybody runs to the receiver, lift him up and say, "You the hero," but he's really not the hero by himself, because had the quarterback not made an accurate pass, he would not have caught it. And had the lineman not blocked, the quarterback would not have time to throw the pass. And had the coach not sent in the right play, then the quarterback wouldn't know what to do. So it was a team effort, and those officers that worked with me, the supervisors, everybody that was involved, those who stopped traffic, those who were supporting in other ways, all of us worked together at the sheriff department to make this happen. So it's not just me.
What kind of training do you receive to deal with these kinds of situations? We should say, attempted suicides or suicides off of that bridge or other places are not uncommon, sadly, in this city. And it's not uncommon that an officer would be at a scene like that. What professionally are you taught to do? How did that apply to what you actually were called to do in the moment?
We have trained negotiators that will handle situations like that. I'm not a trained negotiator, but we are trained in the academy how to identify people with mental illnesses. And so we are trained in that area. And I think that as officers over a period of time, you learn how to talk to people. And, once you identify the problem, then you learn within yourself how to deal with it, how to combat it. I had an advantage as a pastor because I'm often confronted with people who are at that point. And so we have training it with the sheriff department on identifying it as an officer, but not necessarily as a negotiator.
Mm-hmm. And so what you've been through, do you feel like it has fundamentally changed the way that you would operate as an officer? I feel like so much of your interactions with people are probably don't end as well, because very often you're on the enforcement side. Obviously, you're going to be disposing people at jail or placing them under arrest, and sometimes, just calming a situation. But a lot of times it's more confrontational than that.
I tell people often that as a police officer, you are a hero 1 minute and a zero the next minute. You could do something heroic, and then you can say something that someone don't like, and then all of a sudden you become a zero. So it's impacting my life because I realize the sensitivity of being a police officer, how it can easily go left very quickly. In that situation, if you think about it, had he jumped, and I think people don't think about that part, had he jumped, then the liability rests on me as the officer that talked. One, why were you talking? Why wasn't the negotiator talking? There's so much liability, and that I have to deal with. I would have had to deal with.
Like legal liability?
Well, as a family, they probably would ask the sheriff department, why was he the one talking?
Wow.
Why did they ask him to talk? So you never know where something could have gone because people are angry and, you couldn't save. People expect as a law enforcement officer, you should be able to work a miracle. You should be able to save every situation, arrest every suspect. They think that. And so, as I processed it and kind of took a woosah moment, all of that kind of hit me. And I was like, well, what if it would have went left? And so I have to, I deal with that. I wanted, and the reason why I like doing the interviews is because I want people to know that as a law enforcement officer, we really do care. We're real people, we're genuine, and we care. We want to help. That's why I got into this profession. I'm a pastor. I own a car lot. So this is not a financial thing for me. I'm not doing this because I need money. This is a calling for me. I left the sheriff department in 2000, and I came back in 2021 at the age of 55, went all back through the academy again, not because I wanted money, I needed a job. It's because I felt like God was calling me to do this. I looked at what was happening in the community and the negative stigma that police were receiving, and I wanted to be that person, that agent of change. I didn't want to just talk about the problem. I want to be a part of the solution. And every time I go to work, I want people to know that the police genuinely care.
2021 was a very difficult time between, relations between the community and law enforcement. That was, a year, probably less than a year after George Floyd was murdered. It was post-pandemic. There was a lot of protesting going on. Did you feel any special obligation as a Black man in going back to the world of policing? And on that topic, just want you to talk a little bit about, mental health when it comes to, the Black community. Men in general often feel resistant to seeking help sometimes or exposing vulnerabilities. And I just kind of curious how this has opened that dialogue or not. I don't know.
As a pastor of a predominantly Black church, I'm often confronted with questions from my congregants about why is this happening? Why the police doing this? Explain this situation, especially with the different incidents that you named. I have to deal with that as, at that time, a former police officer. I came on in 1987. I left around 2000. When I came back in 2021, I was like Rip Van Winkle. It was, it was a whole nother department from what I left. So to come back to that, there were questions that need to be answered. And I think people needed to see a lot of it are misnomers. And that's what I found out, because being away from it for 21 years, you hear things and you say, wow, is this really happening in our community? But a lot of it is just, people have misconceptions. There's some things that are put out that are not true. And so when I stepped back in, I wanted to validate to my congregation, not just what I heard, but I'm now a part of the sheriff department, and no, that's not what we do, and that's not what's happening. And so it allowed me to engage my congregants with a more realistic message of what the sheriff office and what the sheriff office community mixing together, what's actually happening, and to try to build a bridge that will foster a relationship of trust.
And do you think that this opens a conversation into the mental health issue when it comes to men or reluctance to seek help?
One thing I can applaud our sheriff and the department now. When I came on in 87, we did not have training on mental health awareness. So when a person acted out, it was, you are now a suspect, and now we are trained to be able to identify that is a mental problem, and you handle it more gingerly. Now, you still have to protect yourself, but you handle it more gingerly, and that's a direct result of the training that we receive. So officers are now, I've noticed the new era of a police officer are more compassionate because of the training that we receive.
Well, Officer Richardson, it's a remarkable story, and we appreciate you sharing it. Once again, if you or someone you love is in crisis, you can reach immediate, free, and confidential help 24/7 through the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, which you can reach by phone or text by dialing 988. Officer Antonio Richardson, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, up next, from karaoke to bingo to an eating competition featuring cuisines across Asia, we meet the organizers of the Asian Night Market, Jacksonville.
Join us for a special screening of Age of Audio, the acclaimed documentary featuring podcast pioneers like Mark Maron, Ira Glass, and Kevin Smith. Stick around for a panel discussion with director Sean Colon and local experts. It all happens June 3rd at WJCT Studios. It's free, but RSVP at wjct.org/events.
It's stupid on stilts. That's what Republican Senator Tom Tillis is calling the deal between the Trump DOJ and the Trump IRS, that $1.776 billion fund that the president intends to use to compensate anyone he chooses, including people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. That's why others are calling it the worst act of presidential corruption in U.S. history. That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
More than 100 U.S. ambassadorships are vacant, or about half of all posts worldwide. Thousands of career diplomats are out, and foreign governments are finding back channels to the president that bypass the State Department altogether. What does American diplomacy look like when its primary institution isn't part of the decision-making? Next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. A free community event anchored in celebrating Asian culture and cuisine kicks off 2 upcoming community events. Here to tell us about it, we're joined by the organizers of the event, Madeline Nguyen and Vu Nguyen. They're not related, but they're both here to join us and tell us about it. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Madeline, how did this event begin? What was the inspiration behind it? Why did you all just start doing it?
Well, thanks for having us today. The reason we started the Asian night market because 2 years ago we didn't see there's any event at night for the community to gather for food and a community. So we're thinking of a night market event, and because we're Asian, so we're thinking why not Asian night market? And so we put together an event where we collect all of the Asian food from Filipino, Thailand, Vietnamese, Chinese, Korean, all kind of Asian food vendors together, so we can create an event where the community can get together, enjoy different kind of food, Asian food, without going to Asia. And the event started small, and then thanks to the community, they spread the words, and thanks to social media, we got more people coming, and we're growing.
Yeah, and it is growing. Vu, this location began and continues at the RD International Supermarket on Beach Boulevard. Describe to us the setting. Usually this monthly event is over 2 nights back to back. And so what is the scene? What are people experiencing in addition to the numerous food vendors?
The event, of course, is free to enter, and people will come and see all different food from all different Asian culture. They see live performance. We have DJ, we have band to play, we have singers come from Jacksonville, and also we have performer from out of town. We have dragon dance, we have free bingo with prize, and we have eating contests, and people with their families, their friends can come out to enjoy the whole night.
And also some karaoke, I understand?
Yes.
Yeah. So this has been, as we said, at the supermarket on Beach Boulevard, Madeline, but it is expanding its footprint now downtown. And so instead of just having a night or 2 nights a month of the Asian Night Market Jacksonville, you're actually going to be doing a second event in June. Why is that? And why downtown?
Well, we are growing in the Asian community, growing in the community accepting Asian night market as a very good event. And we're thinking we're going to take this opportunity to expand it to downtown. The reason we do that because downtown Jacksonville just got the Riverwalk, the new Riverwalk, and downtown has been reformed, and we want to invite people to come to downtown to enjoy the Riverwalk. And while they're there, they need something to eat, right? So we're thinking, okay, why not bring Asian night market down to the rivers and have people enjoy the view, enjoy the river, and have the kids zone. The river edge going to be right at the school board, so everybody can come. There's plenty of parking too, so people can come there and enjoy the night, the 2 night out. And thanks to City of Jacksonville, we'll be able to come to do this event monthly, starting June 26th and 27th.
Yeah. And that's a great location for people who haven't been there. This is the South Bank Riverwalk, but it's the River's Edge portion of it, which is that new development known as Central Park. But there's a kids park there as well, Vu. And so it's not just the Asian night market, but people can kind of come and go from the Riverwalk itself and this playground that's been created there.
Yes, that's a huge playground with all different things for the kid to play. And that place open right now, and we're going to be able to bring our vendors, our Asian night market in to participate, and we bring more fun to the community.
Are there other vendors as well besides food, Madeline? Are there craft vendors as well?
We really want to do more Asian food, and we allow some other food to come into for the diversity of the event, but we still allow some art and craft so people can do some shopping, and we might bring in some face painting, something like that for the kids and for other people who want to shop. So yes.
Do you expect that the audience, the people that are coming, will change now that you're also adding this additional downtown location?
I mean, the location in Jacksonville probably have a different audience, and maybe somebody never knows about the Riverwalk, probably going to come down and enjoy the river and enjoy the new Riverwalk. So we hope that the community out there will come and support the city and support Asian night market to the new location.
Well, it is a great event. It is going to be now the second weekend of every month, but as we said, twice in June. It's the Asian Night Market Jacksonville. It's June 12th and 13th. That is at the RD International Supermarket on Beach Boulevard. And then June 26th and 27th at Central Park at River's Edge on the South Bank. Those events all run 4 to 10. Madeline, Vu, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ann, for having us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. And thank you for listening. Please join us tomorrow when we talk about the week's top headlines, including new records suggesting the outgoing suspension of a Duval County art teacher was initiated by a sitting school board member. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Even when we drive defensively, accidents can still happen. Do you know what to do next? There's more to it than you might think.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com.